Hello and welcome to the 5th round of the UCI Women's World Cup. We've moved to China. We're here in Chongming for what is going to be a very different style of race. Well, people getting inspired to ride bikes, although he's going to have to get the wrapping off before he gets that bike out and in action. Well, the local dim sum cuisine is on offer as well for the crowd to enjoy the atmosphere as we build up to the start of this World Cup. Lizzie Armistead then leads the UCI World Cup ranking, but she has chosen not to come here to China as of her main competitors overall. Well, we're here in Chongming. It is located at the gateway to the Yangtze River. This is the third largest island in China, and it is an area where we're building an eco-island. Lots of wetlands for birds, and also well known for its rice and its local fish as well. We're 45 kilometers from Shanghai, and the commissaires are getting ready for racing. There is Martin Bruin, who'll be looking after the team as we make sure the rules and regulations of racing are adhered to. Well, the fans here in Chongming are looking forward to seeing the women's peloton race. And here we go, a little bit retro, an instant photograph of the giant Shimano team. Kirsten Wild is the big favourite for this race, and let's hear a little bit from her now.
You never know, it's a tactic race, and we don't know, there are a lot of strong competitors, so I feel good, but I don't know how the other girls feel and how their legs are. But yeah, I think a lot of girls are scared in the rain, so maybe those girls are a bit more to the back, but the roads are wide, the roads are straight, so I don't think it's a big influence.
Kirsten Wild relishes the rain, but one rider who doesn't is Giorgia Bronzini.
I really don't like the rain. I don't like when the sun don't come up, but okay, I keep my smile in me, and maybe I bring off in the race.
Who do you think are going to be the hardest people to beat today?
The problem would be that in the bridge with this kind of wind, depending if we have a head or crosswind in the bridge, and maybe over there can be a little bit split on the bunch. And I hope that the team have one girl in the break. If not, I'm pretty sure that the team stay closer to me to bring me a good laid out for the sprint.
Well, let's see how Giorgia Bronzini does. Rochelle Bowles-Dolmans are here.
Well, it's great to see Bowles-Dolmans here in China, but they've made a bold decision to leave their World Cup leader, Lizzie Armistead, at home for a mid-season break. Here's the mechanic of LA Cipollini getting the bikes ready for their sprinter, Shelley Olds. She's had a fantastic week here at the Tour of Chongming Island. She's managed to be on the podium 3 times out of 3 days, so her confidence should be very high.
I'm excited. It's always nice to start with the stage race and you have a couple tries at the finish before you come to the World Cup, but it's raining again, so yeah, we'll see. It should be a different race today. I think it's longer and it's raining and windy, so we'll see. It is a tricky sprint, but it all depends on how we come into the final, and it just depends on what the other teams do and what happens in the, you know, there can be a crash, you never know, so every day is different here.
Here we have the Australian national team. They've arrived a little bit late due to their visa problems. They missed the Tour of Chongming Island. They're here with Mel Hoskins, one of the fastest sprinters in the world.
For me, it's about staying out of trouble, and I do know the finish, and I came here on Thursday and watched the girls finish in the tour, so you know, I know the people to watch, and hopefully that plays into my hands, but at the end of the day, it's whoever's the quickest.
So we've heard then from some of the main riders that we expect to be the protagonists of today's UCI Women's World Cup. The 18 teams are lined up on the start line. It's a little bit wet now as the riders don the rain capes, but the guns are fired and the race is underway. Big peloton, and we'll pick the riders out as they get into the racing. Here's a look at what the riders face today. So they make their way out of the start relatively flat. We got the first sprint pretty early on in today's World Cup. There we are, we go through that. And then we make our way down towards the river, over the Queen of the Mountains point on the bridge, and then work our way back onto the island, circling back and heading along the banks of the river through sprint 2 before the run-in slightly downhill into the finish. 130 kilometers of racing, and a very different style to what we've seen so far in the World Cup. The peloton all lined out. The pace has been pretty rapid from the start, and Rochelle, you finished on the podium in this World Cup when it was first run in 2010, and it generally comes down to a bunch sprint. So the tactics of the teams who've got sprinters are going to be pretty interesting today.
Well, the majority of the World Cup rounds are actually quite tough and hilly, so China's one of those unique opportunities for the sprinters, and the biggest teams have brought their strongest sprinters. And we see here the Australian national team, they've brought 2 sprinters, Rebecca Weisack and Mel Hosking. So it looks like they're lining this out for Rebecca Weisack to have a go at the intermediate sprints, while they save Mel Hosking for the final sprint.
So some interesting tactics being employed here, and the Australian team looking after Rebecca Weisack as we start to head now towards the first sprint of the day. Remember, Iris Slappendel is in the sprints jersey, having scored 12 points along the way in the UCI Women's World Cup. But as we approach now this first sprint, it is the Australian Rebecca Weisack who is right in the middle there. She grits her teeth and crosses the line ahead of Nina Kessler of Bowles-Dolmans and Anna Stricker of Astana B Pink. So she is on the hunt now for as many points as possible. Now, we talk about the sprinters though, Rochelle, and within the women's peloton, we just think maybe we contrast it and think we're just going to have the sprint trains are just going to bring everything into the finish line. But that isn't the case, is it? Some sprinters want there to be a lead-out train. Others want to ensure that there's other things going on the run into the finish.
Well, the 2 major sprinters here, Kirsten Wild and Georgia Bronzini from different teams, they have very different tactics in a race that they want to have come down to a sprint. For example, Georgia Bronzini, she likes the race to be very attacking and for her team to attack and make the race hard and put other teams under pressure. We see here a local rider from the Chongming team having an attack, trying to make the race hard. Probably doesn't want to come down to a sprint, so she'd like to break it up a little bit. But back to the sprint tactics, Kirsten Wild, she would prefer that her team just closes everything down for a sprint. So they both have the same ambition to bring it down to a sprint, but very different styles of getting to that end result.
So Georgia Bronzini wants everyone's legs to hurt to make sure that the sting is taken out of the sprint of Kirsten Wild. As we look here at the front group, many teams represented. The Australians represented again. The Dutch Park Hotel team, they're in that lime green yellow colour, and Wiggle Honda also represented towards the front with Hagiwara. She is just going through, keeping the pace nice and steady. At the back then of the group, riders are going with their domestiques, taking some of the jackets back. This is Alina Kushinskaya of the Rus Velo team, handing jackets in. The weather's starting to improve a little bit.
Well, it was wet at the start, and we saw a lot of riders had plenty of layers on, but it's actually not that cold here in China, so they could have made the mistake of too much clothing because of the wet weather, but they've been able to pass that off to the vehicles now.
Another acceleration at the front from the Astana B Pink team. Now, another question we've had in our minds over the lead up to this race is the decision of the World Cup leader Lizzie Armitstead not to be here.
It's definitely a decision that's puzzled me. If I was Lizzie Armitstead, I would have taken this opportunity to come and get extra points at this World Cup to extend the lead and take pressure off in the later part of the season when she has other ambitions like the Commonwealth Games, La Course, some big races. So now the World Cup gets some extra points, but she's decided to stay home and have a rest.
Well, we'll see whether it is a decision that comes home to roost later on in the season. She has an advantage with 420 points, leading Emma Johansson with 260. But Johansson again also choosing not to be here. Another stretch here of the pace, and this is the Chongming Giant team. Again, it is nullified, and it's Wiggle Honda and Astana B Pink who are just trying to keep everything together right now. So that race comes all back together again, and we'll see where the next attack comes from. But still, Rochelle, the pace has been very, very high so far. When we get onto the bridge across the river, we're going to encounter some crosswinds, so we'll see whether, I guess, some teams decide. And here we go, we're onto the bridge now, which was finished in 2009. We'll see whether the crosswinds play any part in this race now.
Well, it is only a bridge, but speaking from experience, it's very tough. It's definitely a hill in the mind of the sprinters and a danger point on the circuit. So everyone will be trying to get to the front and positioned well. Going onto the bridge here at the toll gates is a very specific point in the race where you need to be at the front and pay attention to the attacks. And if there is strong crosswinds, then it's going to be very difficult on the bridge.
So we're going to go over the bridge now, and we've got the Queen of the Mountains points as well, which are on offer, and they're very, very important. That classification led by Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, and we can see here at the back the riders who are suffering a little bit, and importantly we see Shelley Olds there wearing number 41, making her way to the front.
She's certainly seeing the danger here and moving to the front, and interestingly she's done it by herself. You don't often see sprinters do that because normally they have their team around them to take them from the back to the front, but she saw a moment there where she needed to move up and gone up on the windy side.
So Shelley Olds with the Ale Cipollini team, a great kit, easy to pick out, and the tempo relatively fast now at the front, and these wide Chinese roads do mean that there's so much movement in this peloton.
Well, they're fast roads, and that's why we see here that the bunch looks like it's bunched up, but it's actually quite an uphill stretch here until the top of the bridge where they have the Queen of the Mountains sprint. And in this year's World Cup, they're going to go over the bridge, turn around and come back over the other side, which means that they have the climb 2 times over the bridge.
So it does mean that everyone has to be vigilant towards the front. The Giant Shimano team in the white and black, keeping the tempo nice and high. The Australians represented as well. Russ Velo in the red and white, another strong squad. The Korean team looking interested too. Not often they get the chance to race against the top women's professional teams.
Well, Russ Velo have been very strong this week in the Tour of Chongming Island. They've been the team that wants to make it aggressive, and now they're coming into the Queen of the Mountain sprint here on the top, and you can see Russ Velo's on the front now trying to pick up points in that sprint.
Well, of course, during the World Cup, we have the different classifications. We have the overall leader, we have the sprints competition, the Queen of the Mountains, and we have the best young rider in the race. Those jerseys presented at the end of each of the World Cup. So we're heading now towards this Queen of the Mountains points. We'll see who is going to take it, and the sprint now is starting to open up. There are 4 riders at the top of this classification, but none of them are here in Chongming, so it's an open race now for the points, and whoever takes them is going to move themselves up on the classification in the Queen of the Mountains. The sprint starts to open up now, and it's Sarah Olsen at the front from the High Tech Products team who is going to hit the line first, ahead there of Anna Stricker and Katrin Garfoot.
Well, we didn't see any of the main players of today's race getting involved with that Queen of the Mountains sprint. Kirsten Wild's one of the favourites here today. She's won 2 World Cups, so this will be the 3rd individual road World Cup if she wins here today. I took the opportunity to catch up with her and learn a little bit about her earlier in the week.
I'm a 31-year-old rider from the Netherlands. I started cycling pretty late. I started racing when I was 18. At that moment I was still teaching at the high school, physical education. But my level on the bike got a bit better, I got some money, and I thought, okay, maybe I can try to be a professional cyclist. And so here I am. My first race was the Amstel Gold race. I think I was dropped after 6K, so it wasn't a big success. But I liked it and I still like it. When I'm not cycling, I like to read books, I like to watch films, I like to hang out with my boyfriend or family or friends. My favorite film? Yeah, I like the music of U2 and Coldplay. I think the level of women's cycling is a lot higher the last years. You see there are a lot of more teams, professional teams, but I think it's also interesting that it's on television and like we do now in China. Yeah, that makes it interesting for sponsors, and that's the big point in the end. Well, it's always nice to do these big classic races together with the men. These races are really good organized, so we can profit of the organization of the men's races. For me, Paris-Roubaix would be a really interesting race. I like cobbles. I think it's a hard race, so if that race once would be on the calendar, I would be really happy. I did this race once before, it was in 2010, and I became second, and with a photo finish to Ina Joke Teutenberg. The team we have here is a strong team, it's also a young team. It's important to have a strong team, but it's also important that you know each other and that you know each other's strength. And if you know each other's strength, you can also play the game better and use the strength of the girls at a good moment. Well, as you can see, it's windy, and I think the race will be hard from the start on. With the bridge, the open parts, well, I expect to get pain in the legs. I hope it will come down to a sprint sprint, but it will be hard to control. But I hope there are more teams who want to go for a sprint sprint and that we go, all together for the sprint sprint. The sprint is really difficult. You have a little bridge, so you can't start too early because then you have the uphill part. But if you are too late, the speed is too high and they come from the back. So I have to find a good point. I think I know it.
Let's see how Kirsten does later on in the race as we make our way back over the bridge. Another couple of attacks just prizing themselves off the front, and still the same teams involved in the action.
Well, there's some exciting attacks happening now, and this is what we expected coming off the bridge. Wiggle Honda's Emily Collins, she's going on the attack, but it's Giant Shimano that are closing everything down. There's not that many people in the race, or teams in the race, that believe they could beat Kirsten Wild in this type of finish. It's slightly downhill, so she's a very tough rider to beat on this course.
Well, her team are doing a fantastic job for her, aren't they? As Emily Collins, the first rider to win a race for the Wiggle Honda team after it was formed, just swung off the front there. Her attack has come to nothing. So we are going to see now, I think, some teams getting involved in some attacks. They know that Kirsten Wild is the big danger. Another big move here, and it is the Swedish champion. Here she goes, Emilia Farlin, another Wiggle Honda attack.
Well, Wiggle Honda are certainly making this race hard, even though they have a sprinter, Giorgia Bronzini, in the peloton. Giorgia Bronzini's also been on the podium a couple of times this week, but found it very tough on this finish to come over Kirsten in the finish.
So Emilia Farlin pressing on yet again, trying to open up a little bit of a gap. But this is not something we normally see in a race that we're expecting sprinters to win in. So, Rochelle, what are the tactics?
Well, Wiggle Honda's tactic here, I guess, is to put the Giant Shimano team under pressure by continuously attacking and hoping that their team has to close everything down. However, it seems to be backfiring a little bit, because we just saw Russ Velo and the Australian national team close things down on behalf of the Giant Shimano team. So we see again, this is Lottie Becker now having attack for the Wiggle Honda team, trying to put that Giant Shimano team of Kirsten Wild under pressure, but as you can see, it's other teams that are closing it down.
And I guess then it takes the sting out of the legs of the train that Kirsten Wild is going to rely on when she gets into the last few kilometres. It means that they just won't have the pace to race against the other teams like Wiggle Honda, like Ale Cipollini.
Well, that's why at this level teams become so important. All these riders and all these teams have raced already 3 days this week, so the legs of the Giant Shimano team are definitely getting a little bit tired after having to close everything down for their sprinter. Also the Ale Cipollini team, they've raced very hard this week, closing everything down, and we can see here that it's teams like Farah. We haven't spoken about the Farah Mexico team yet, but they've also got a sprinter in Cecchini in the race.
Far in Mexico, they are the team who are all in pink there, if we're just trying to pick them out and know which squad they are. We talk a little bit about the Ale Cipollini team there with Shelley Olds, a winner in 2012, where she beat Hoskins into a second place. But they've only got 4 riders here in China, which means that she's got to rely maybe on surfing the wheels of the other squads. Australia now on the front again.
Well, Australia's coming into the second sprint of the day, and I think if their Australian wins this sprint, she'll be on equal points with the current holder of the jersey, which is Iris Slappendale. So they're going to go 100% for this sprint. You can see all their riders at the front there. They've got 5 riders at the front, so they're taking this on and they're going 100% for this intermediate sprint.
It's Rebecca Wazak who took the first sprint, and as you say, Rochelle, if she takes the maximum points here, then she would take the sprinter's jersey. As we see back here, Kirsten Wild just sitting, relaxing in the middle of the peloton, talking to her teammates, working the tactics out. Meanwhile, back at the front, it is Australia with the lead-out train going. They are looking here to bring Rebecca Wazak through to take this victory if she possibly can, and score the maximum maximum points. That would take the jersey off Iris Slappendale, of course the designer of the UCI Women's World Cup jerseys. Through the corner, very fast now.
This looks really impressive from the Australian national team. They've been training for this World Cup in Milan all together to get to know the strengths of each other, and no doubt they've done this sprint train time and time again, and coming into the second sprint now they look like a well-oiled professional team.
They certainly do. Well, left and right hand side of the road, some great crowds enjoying the action, and it's Rebecca Wazak, the rider from Geelong, who's going to sprint across the line here. She takes the maximum points. There we are. She will be in the sprinter's jersey later on today. So the rider who, of course, we know as a rider in the individual pursuit on the track has now transformed that form into sprinting. Another look here at Kirsten Wild, still spinning along, keeping the legs nice and supple, and another attack here at the front.
Tona Lima of High Tech Products is having none of this sprint. They don't have a really strong sprinter here. Chloe Hosking didn't come to this World Cup. She's had success here before, but the team's here without a major sprinter, so they're putting the pressure on in the final kilometres of the race. Georgia Bronzini looks very comfortable. Coming up to the 5 kilometres to go mark, she's very relaxed there and really looking forward to a sprint.
Well, Bronzini was second last year to Ryabchenko. Another attack, and it is Emily Roper of the Australian national team who is now joined our other breakaway rider. So 2 riders now just trying to move away to outwit the sprinters. Can they hold on these wide straight roads? It's almost impossible.
It's definitely going to come back to a sprint now. You've got all the main players and their teams at the front now trying to control the race and bring it back for a sprint. So these riders, are a fair credit to them. They're having a go, and they want to take their chance and put the other teams under pressure to set the Australian team have Mel Hosking, their sprinter there, so it's been the Mexico foreign team that have closed it down, so they're obviously believing in their sprinter Cecchini. Very exciting coming into the finish here.
Cecchini is a very good rider. She was very consistent in the recent Women's Tour in Great Britain. 3 top 6 places, 1 kilometre of racing to go now, and we can pick out the Swedish champion, Emilia Farlin, there in the blue and yellow, right on the front as she starts to set up the lead-out train for Georgia Bronzini. Look at the pace round this corner. Very, very fast indeed.
That's an impressive lead-out by Emilia. She's still on the front, so at this pace on this finish, it's very hard to hold that pace so high with the bunch all together. And we see LA Cipollini now hitting out and moving their sprinter to the front.
Oh, Rochelle, you'd be thriving in this one. Here we go, Ale Cipollini in the fluo yellow. It's still the Wiggle Honda train as they accelerate. Bronzini's now in second wheel. Kirsten Wild has surfed her way onto the wheel of Georgia Bronzini. Now the sprint's going to open up. 150 metres to go to the line. Slightly downhill now as Shelley Olds goes on the right-hand side, but it's Kirsten Wild right in the middle in the white and black. She's going to drag race all the way to the finish. She takes the victory. Ahead of there, it looks like Cecchini and Bronzini in the mix for the podium places. Well, a couple of riders here on the deck. One of them is Emilia Farlin, the Swedish champion, looking like she's in a bit of pain. She was the lead-out rider of Wiggle Honda. I didn't see the crash, but behind the peloton, she is left on the deck.
Well, that was an exciting sprint and definitely a very difficult one to judge, but Kirsten Wild, she's got her timing right and won that victory that she wanted so much.
Oh, it was so hectic. We planned to have a nice train, but then one of the most important girls in the train, Willeke, she crashed. So we had to change the plan completely, and I followed the Wiggle train, but it was really hard. But the girls did such a good job, helped me the whole day. I said to them it was the race, and I did nothing in the whole race, so they did a perfect job.
So she's still here and I, right?
A good day for the High Tech Products team. Emily Moberg took 4th place overall, and Sarah Olsen, of course, taking the Queen of the Mountains points. Wiggle Honda, they led out, but they didn't quite take the victory. 5 rounds of the World Cup down and 5 different winners. Kirsten Wild takes the victory she desperately wanted. Elena Cecchini of Estadio de Mexico Farin takes 2nd, and Bronzini in 3rd. Well, there's the podium then, all smiles with Kirsten Wild. She finished 2nd in this race previously. Now she's on the top step of the podium. And Cecchini, what a fantastic sprint from her. Time for the selfies for the podium winners. No change at the top of the World Cup standings, but there's a bit of a shuffle from 7th place onwards. Kirsten Wild moves into 7th, Cecchini is in 8th, Olds in 9th and Bronzini in 10th. An emerging talent then, Elena Cecchini is now equal on points with Pauline Ferrand-Prévot in the best young rider classification.
It was really hard because Wiggle did a really strong race, and so we tried to enter in every breakaway. So my teammates were really wonderful, and I just tried to stay on Kirsten Wild because I know that she and Georgia were the better one. So I'm really happy that I did second. It's important for me.
The winning team of the day, High-Tech Products on the podium. The World Cup takes a break now. We'll be back in August for the Sparkassen Giro in Bochum. But for all the news and information, join us at UCI Women's Cycling. From Rochelle Gilmore and myself, Anthony McCrossan, bye for now.